Hey guys, Handyman Kevin here. Today we're going to be making a basic job site fixture, commonly known as the sawhorse. The real carpenter name for them is a trestle because you're not just using them for sawing. You can use them to hold up tables as temporary bases for tools. You can put a plank across them for scaffolding. And if you're around job sites for any length of time, you get pretty quick at knocking them up. Now, everyone builds sawhorses, trestles a different way. But the way I'm going to show you is the way I learned when I was an apprentice, and it makes good sturdy sawhorses. First off, you want to think about the height. Now, you've seen the ones they sell at the home center, which are just kind of like a generic waist high. Those are good if you're going to use power tools. Waist height is good so you can see what you're doing with a circular saw or a router or a belt sander. If you're going to use mainly hand tools, however, you need to get more leverage. So make them about knee height, and that'll be right for your crosscut saw and your jack plane, stuff like that. Whereas the one I'm making today is going to be the same height as my table saw. I'm going to use it to support long pieces of plywood. So for that, I'm going to make it exactly the same height as my table saw. So think about that ahead of time, and then get your materials together. Materials here are really simple. So you need a piece of 2x stock. Doesn't have to be a 2x4, 2x6 would work. 2x8's too wide, but you could always rip it. Usually you want it between 2 and 3 feet long, unless you're making a super mega sawhorse. This looks like about 3 feet. Not critical though. And then you need enough 1x4 to make the legs, plus a couple feet. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to come in about 5 or 6 inches from each end and mark where the top of the leg is going to hit. So about 5 inches, that sounds good. And just make a mark on each side with your square. Do that on the other side. Now, the legs of a sawhorse are going to splay. So, you can mess around with protractors and the angle finder on your saw and all that, but what most people would do is they just get a bevel, which is this tool right here, which you can set it to any angle and save the angle. This is one of the tools that most homeowners don't own, most pros do, because once you have it in your tool bag, it's really handy. I think I paid $5 for this years ago. The plastic handle broke off. I just put a walnut handle on there. So bevel works good for now. Now, towards the outside, you can think about sawhorses you've seen. It's maybe 1 6, 1 8 bevel. That looks pretty good. So it doesn't really matter what you do it, as long as you make it the same. And if you're making a set of sawhorses, you want to have them all have the same angle. So I'm just going to take a bevel, I'm going to mark that angle for where we're going to chisel out a gain for the leg. I'm trying to use nice dark pencil so you can see. Okay. And that's going to let the legs splay out, which is going to make them a lot more sturdy. If you make them straight up and down, they'll be wobbly. And the last thing you want when you have a board going in and out of a table saw is any amount of wobbliness. Okay, so now for the other end of that, we're just going to take one of our 2x6 pieces, lay it along the line we made, and mark the other line. Do that 4 times. Okay. Not super precise. We're not building boats or cabinets here. just sawhorses, but that'll end up being pretty good. Okay. Now I gotta draw an X on that, because that wood's gonna come out. Seems silly, but you'd be amazed at how many times I've taken wood out that I wasn't supposed to take wood out because I forgot to make that X. Okay. And then the legs are going to tip the other way too, but they're going to be a little steeper. So just stretch your bevel out just a little more. Now this part you're going to mark on the end. Okay. Try to do this so you can see it. Okay. You're going to look at the end and you're going to hold the bevel like the leg would go. So it's going to come in a little bit on the top. Okay. And you're just going to mark where that hits. Okay, for reference. Then you're going to take your square. You can use a combo square or you can use a speed square. But you see where that hits on the square? That mark you made. And you're going to mark the same spot. And just do that top edge of that again. Okay. And you're just going to do the other same thing for the tops of each of the other 4 legs. Now, I'm using a speed square because that's usually what I have sticking out of my nail bag if you were making this on a job site. A better tool for the job would be the combo square. I usually only have my combo square with me if I'm doing finished carpentry. The rest of the time it stays here in the garage. But you can see the combo square, you can just set it for that width. And then that makes it super easy. You don't need a steady hand like you do with the speed square. Of course, if you're a drywaller, you're laughing at me because you already got done marking with your tape measure. Because drywallers get really good at holding their tape measure square and marking because that's how they cut their sheets. I'm not that good. I only hang drywall a few times a year. Okay. So what you basically got is you got all these top marks. That's all going to come out. That's just where you're going to have the wood rest. And it's going to come out at the right angle. Okay, so those come out. Tool of choice for that is basically any handsaw. You wouldn't be able to set a power saw to hit it right. So I'm in the garage here, so I've got my tenon saw, which is perfect for precision crosscuts. You could use your Japanese handsaw or your ordinary crosscut saw if you're on a job site. I am just going to saw those out. Try not to overcut too much. And you've got 8 of those to do. Okay, so I've got the cuts made. I kind of pulled a Roy Underhill here. That's okay, he's my childhood hero. But painter's tape makes a good bandage. And now I'm just going to take my chisel and just pop that wood out of there. This is soft wood, so you shouldn't even need to hammer that much. Like so, that's most of the way. And then when you get close to where you want to be, you kind of slow down and you cut more instead of chopping. You notice I'm supporting it on a block. This just got recovered my workbench the other day and I don't want to mess it up just yet. As long as you cut pretty square and you didn't overcut too much, the wood should just almost pop right out. That's pretty good there. Newbies almost always take a hammer to the chisel. And you know, there are times when you need to use a hammer or more often a good wooden mallet that won't wreck the chisel. But most of the time, if you're doing it with softwood, it means your chisel is either too small or too dull. When you use a big sharp chisel and you got decent leverage, so you don't need to bang on it hardly at all. Okay. That's pretty good. You see I made that gain. Which will accept the end of the 2x6. It's a little tight. That's not bad. Remember, measure twice, cut once, and then pound to fit. But you don't want it more than a little tight. Okay, I'm going to cut 3 more of those, and then we can make some legs. Next thing you want to do is you want to cut the legs off so that they're a size you can work with. Just sort of rough cut them, in other words. Now, you can be pretty arbitrary about this if you're just making sawhorses for sawing. But since I actually want mine to line up with the table saw, I'm going to lay it on the table saw, fit the board up, and then I know that I have at least 1.5 inches to play with, but I'm going to come up, another inch or two. I'm going to cut all 4 of my legs about that long. Now obviously I could use any saw to cut these, but they're already right next to the table saw. So what we're going to do now is we're going to nail the legs on. We're not going to try to worry about trimming them to fit at the top. We're just going to let them run wild. That'll make them less likely to split, and they're going to be easier to trim later. On the job site, you most likely wouldn't have glue, but we have it, and glue doesn't hurt. So we're going to put a little dab of glue in each gain before we put the leg in. And then we're going to nail them on with small common nails, about 6 penny. They'll be plenty strong enough, and anything bigger would probably split the wood. So, dab of glue. You'll notice I pre-started the first nail. Is that a word, pre-started? That just means I need one less hand to put it together. Okay, so you line everything up, leave it long on the top, and nail that in. Okay. Two or 3 nails, probably 3 nails each should be fine. It's kind of a juggling motion, keep it from tipping while you nail. part of the fun of carpentry, is you always need one more arm than you have. But anyway, you go ahead and you nail on all 4 legs, and then we can go on to the next step. So now I've got all the legs on it, and it's beginning to look a lot like a sawhorse. I'm just going to take a crosscut saw and just flush these off. Just follow the 2x4. I've got the top flushed off. Now you notice the legs are both kind of wobbly and not quite the same angle. So I'm going to take a scrap of 2x6 and put it in there as a brace. A piece of plywood would work even better. Tack it for now. And make sure it's pretty squared up, nice. Let's give it a witness mark. Very importantly, before I nail it on, I'm going to mark it. I'm going to mark where it is on the sawhorse. Okay. Pull it off. Another reason to use small nails on this, because they're easy to pull. Okay. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to cut this. And I'm also going to cut the other one just like it, and that way the legs will be at the same angle on each side. Okay, I've got those gussets nailed on. It's a pretty sturdy sawhorse. There's actually only one step left, and that's to make it the same height as the table saw. So, take a level, or really any straight edge that you trust to be straight, and all you do is you lay it across the table saw. You have the sawhorse upside down, sort of the classic dead bug configuration. And you just mark where it hits. And actually you can speed that up, because you can take your bevel, and once you've marked the first one, then you only need to measure the inside part of the legs, and you're good. Seems complicated perhaps, but if you've ever messed around with compound miter tables to figure out an angle, this is far simpler. We always like to mark directly when we have the choice. So I use my bevel to transfer the angle on this to my circular saw, and now I'm just going to cut off the legs. Well, there we go. Nice sturdy sawhorse I can use as an outfeed support on my table saw. Like I said, you can make them any height. You can make tables out of them. You can even put scaffolding across them. Although, do check with the OSHA or whatever the equivalent is in your country or state. So, till next time, have fun making sawhorses. Hope that was helpful, and have a good time. Bye.